I'm Betty Seaman, and I like to joke that I am an accidental natural builder living in an unintentional community. We discovered through a friend that there was this piece of property for sale. Kind of an unsavory situation for most folks. It was undeveloped. We took a look at it and just fell in love with it. We had to begin with the bare necessities. Living in a tent, we would walk to the nearest spring and fill 5-gallon buckets with water and bring it back and use that for drinking and washing and cooking. And it slowly unfolded from that point. No one had heard of cob yet. It was a very unknown term. We researched and researched, and I finally found a little obscure article in the LA Times about a couple from Oregon who had come to teach a workshop in Los Angeles. When I read that, I was like, this is it. After that workshop, I came home and immediately began building with my family. Testing the soil on the wall, so I would just stick it on the chicken wire. I put chicken wire and just tried different recipes and adding sand, and so you can see when you add a little more sand, it tends to crack less. I was really excited to utilize the materials that we had. I felt very empowered, and because none of us knew how to build or what to build with, we just found scrap lumber around town and just started experimenting. We were teaching workshops and people were paying to come and learn and help us build our houses, and probably 70% of the time the students would then go out and create their own shelter. In 5 years we had housed our entire families. Children were quite young when we moved here. The youngest was 6 and the oldest was 12. Now they're all adults, so we have a couple of natural builders and we have a chef artist who has her own apothecary and grows herbs on the land. My mom makes all the jams and jellies and pies and cakes and cookies. So we call her house the bakery. We actually had a bear break into it one time, which is hilarious. My husband teaches Aikido. We built an Aikido studio for him, which now houses an international gathering a couple of times a year. Practitioners come from Japan and Canada and all around the United States to practice Aikido on this beautiful mountaintop. Cob and adobe construction are very similar. The materials are almost the same, but with adobe bricks, you're baking bricks and then you're building with the bricks, and with cob, you're just building a single monolithic structure. The materials are soil with clay content, straw, and usually some sand added, and of course water to create a heavy mud material that gets built with your hands in a monolithic form. This is the stem wall that holds the cob material off the ground to keep it from any water-related situation that could happen. And then there's a really nice drainage situation underneath these stones. The walls are about 2 feet thick, and then we just put a finish plaster on them, and that helps shed water and give it a lot more weather resistancy. 95% of everything we've built here is either from the immediate land surrounding this area or recycled, reclaimed materials that were just pulled out of a waste stream somewhere. These windows are repurposed sliding glass doors that were headed to the landfill that we took the frames off of and inserted in our south-facing wall of this particular structure to get all of the winter solar gain we could to warm the space and have an epic view. So in 2005, in BC, not before Christ, but British Columbia, they did an earthquake test on a shake table. So they started at a 7.4, which is pretty high. Damage was just some cracking. Again, it's because it was curvilinear and the walls are thick. And then when they pushed it as far as it possibly could, there was extreme damage. This is a 9-point Richter scale, and it still would not have collapsed on anyone. It was a completely failed building, but no one would have been killed in that event. We weathered a fire. It started the day after the 4th of July. It wasn't the first time because we do live in a fire-prone area. However, this one was definitely a different beast and was coming directly for us. We were prepared. We took our important papers. Our bodies and our pets were off the land. And I really felt like these buildings would perform as I had hoped, and that there might be some damage, but it wouldn't be irreversible. Most importantly, if we needed to rebuild, Pretty much we can just use the same materials that were here, re-wet them, but soil can't burn, sand can't burn. That's 90% of these structures are an unburnable material. And I was feeling very confident about returning to a place that was going to be depleted. It was 117 degrees for 3 weeks and terribly ashy and smoky. Things suffered for sure, but the houses did remain. It was a good feeling to come home to that. Just to prove to myself and my family and anyone else that wanted to watch, we took a giant blowtorch to the house. The heat doesn't even transfer into the wall. It just barely blackens the exterior surface. Even when there was a nice plaster on it, it didn't seem to do much, and it's a pretty hot flame. When I think about the fires, not just in Los Angeles, but that will be happening in California probably forever, it's important to think about where are these resources coming from that we will be rebuilding with. What kind of environment will that provide for us when we are living in those places? The materials that we might be rebuilding with in the cities will continue to contain toxins in and of themselves and have a really broad footprint. These houses that we live in, we could literally take the roof off, and in a few winters when we get rain, they would simply return to the earth.
By signing the petition linked below, you add your name to a growing voice urging public officials to embrace a future of non-toxic, safe, and affordable construction methods. Together, we can expedite the process by learning, sharing, and educating others.
The more we can think about the beginning, middle, and end of our homes, the healthier we will all be and the healthier our planet will be.